Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with my colleague to talk to you about how remote teams get the most from live collaboration. My name is Adriana Roche, and I am the Chief People Officer here at Mural.
And hi, everyone. I'm Laila van Alvensleben, and I'm Head of Culture and Collaboration at Mural. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about how remote teams get the most from live collaboration, because that's what Mural is all about. Right, Adriana?
That's exactly it. That's our purpose in life. So before we go into it, I think there's a few things that here at Mural we're very, very passionate about, and we're trying to really make sure that we're getting right. Some of them are just amazing use cases that I think all of you will be familiar with. And there are things like when you do strategy and planning, when you're doing brainstorming and ideation, when you're doing alignment and coordination across groups, and also when you're trying to bring connection across groups, because let's face it, in this more hybrid world, it is so important to bring connection. So those are some of the use cases where we want to make sure that we are, doubling down and giving you the right tools to be successful. But another thing that we also like to keep in mind is, as you go into a meeting, what kind of meeting are you trying to run? And this is key to understanding how you're going to craft it. Are you trying to just share information? Are you trying to just ideate and innovate on something? Is it more of a decision-making meeting, or are you just trying to solve a problem together? Knowing what you're trying to do from the outset will help you figure out how to run your meeting going forward.
And when we think about meetings, I like to think of them as a journey, of how we're going to collaborate together. And there's a beginning and an end, and there's something happening in the middle. So when we're planning for a session together, any kind of online collaborative session, we like to think of before, during, and activate. Those three different phases will each have different tasks and checklists in a way to be prepared for the meeting.
That's right. It's not just a one-time go to the meeting, right? You have to get it all set up from the beginning to end. To make it a little bit more concrete, what Laila and I wanted to do today is just show you how we do it very specifically around OKR planning. So this is a template on OKR. You can see that we make it super easy for you. There's instructions on the left-hand side of the template on how to use it, what difficulty is, how long it would take you to do. And then throughout the entire canvas, we just really quickly map it out for you so that you don't really have to second guess. And of course, all of this stuff is editable, but this is usually how we like to work with templates. And this is one that we use very, very often around OKR planning. So Laila, do you want to take us through that journey?
Yes. Well, I did say there were 3 steps. So let's start with before. I'm a big advocate that anyone can be a facilitator, and we really encourage people to build those facilitation skills no matter what your role is, right? Because anybody who starts a meeting is essentially not only the organizer of the meeting, but also a facilitator, or else you can assign that role to somebody else. So I've been facilitating online also for quite a while. You can also build your skills by going to the Luma Institute and find out all about what it takes to become a person who has this human-centric approach to facilitation. And building those skills will be really, really helpful to have more successful collaborative sessions that people will be very engaged in, right? Because we hear all the time that meetings are boring or meetings are too long, and why do we even have a meeting in the first place? But if you have those skills, you'll make sure that you have incredible sessions together. And those facilitation skills come in handy in many ways. So when you set up a session, you want to decide what method are we going to use for this session, which tools will be featured in the session or used before and after, and what kind of roles can we have in the session. So some examples of methods, for example, if you're doing a design sprint, you may use one of our design sprint templates, for example, or if you're doing a user journey, you can use one of those, but each method will have a different kind of playbook that you can use. And Of course, we use Mural a lot internally for collaborative sessions, but you may also look at, what are the other tools that you need in order to communicate? So do you have Zoom, or do you have an instant messaging tool like Microsoft Teams? So what are those tools that you're going to use throughout the meeting and also after the meeting to keep collaborating with your team? And then what are the roles? I love that we also have DJ as a role. I love that. So you don't just have a facilitator, but you may have somebody who's actually in the back playing music. Depending on what kind of meeting or workshop you're doing, you may want to have some music. You may have somebody who is taking the time, making sure that we stay on time, or you have somebody who's taking notes so that you have some documentation that's going on in real time. And just one pro tip around this, actually, if you make everybody included in the session, you're also making them more engaged. So you want to schedule for that inclusivity in your meeting.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the DJ role. The other day we were doing a session where we started playing yodeling, and it just made the whole session a lot more fun. So definitely don't forget about that one. So that kind of brings us, tees up for during the meeting, right? And this is the workshop. This is like where you start bringing everybody together to collaborate. And the first thing that you want to do is make sure that everybody's aligned on what the goal of the meeting is and what the agenda. It's really nice for people to know what it is that they should be expecting. So when we talk about the agenda, then the first thing that we do at Mural, and really it is so important, and it adds flavor to the meeting and it gets everybody excited, is icebreakers and reflections. So icebreakers or warm-ups are a way for the team to just kind of get, like I said, warmed up, getting ready for the meeting. We do different types of things to get people to start talking and getting them prepared for a meeting. And then reflections are also a really good way to set the tone for the meeting. So for example, we were talking about our OKR template at the very beginning. Something that we really like to do before we get on planning for OKRs for the coming quarter is to reflect on the previous quarter. So how did it go? What were some of the wins? What were some of the challenges? Or we might want to do a retrospective on a project before we head on and go forward. It just kind of gets everybody on the same level, especially if you have new people who were not there throughout the entire journey. So this is really, really important to get going at the very beginning.
Yes, and there are many ways also to celebrate wins, whether you're doing something after the session, but during the session, you can also decide to do little reactions like that if you're using Mural, which I think is always fun, to let people know in the session that you're engaging. It's kind of like a virtual applause. But moving on to the end of the journey, right? We're talking about this journey of collaboration. It's extremely important to think about how you're going to activate those next steps after the meeting. So the reason we love also using a tool like Mural is to, what I like to call, eliminate workshop amnesia. So I think we've all been to an online meeting or session or workshop where you do all these great things, but if there's no note-taking, there's no documentation, if there's no measurable action plan, for example, like what we're seeing here, it's hard to remember what you actually spoke about. Maybe even a week later, you can, if you don't have something to look back at, then you're kind of scrambling to remember, what did we actually talk about? So that's why we really encourage everyone to document what is happening, and have everyone documenting. Again, it's going to help keep people engaged. And, we coming back to that OKR template that we referred to from the beginning, this is a great example of finding people who will take ownership over specific tasks and then deciding on the next step. So in the OKR template, for example, everybody decides to have an objective, and then what are the key results to make that objective come to life and achieve that objective by the end of the quarter. And then you can assign owners, so you can write in your sticky notes who those owners are. And then each week you come back to the same document, to the same mural that you're using, for example, and you can decide, you can move these around and decide, okay, am I on track? So am I green? Am I not on track? So having those ways of tracking status in a visual way are great, even because sometimes you may be collaborating asynchronously. So we focus very much now on collaborating synchronously, but actually this is something that if, for example, you have a global team in different time zones, I can update it in my time zone in Switzerland, and then Adriana, she can look at that later in her time zone on the West Coast of the US.
Yeah,
So,
that's super, super helpful, because then we don't need a meeting to just do a status report, which is one of those meetings that people hate.
yes, exactly. So that is the end of our journey, but it's not the end of everything. We do want to share some bonus templates with you. So these are the top 3 templates that we have at Mural, and we wanted to share them with you. So the top one is team warm-ups and energizers. So if you open—
And this is one of my favorite ones,
right,
Lila. So I want to make sure people know this.
well, that is Adriana's favorite. It's one of, I think definitely warm-ups and icebreakers are kind of my favorite thing to do as well. And I also have a blog post on the topic. But this is such a great template because you don't have to think about what icebreaker I'm going to do. You have a selection of them, and you don't have to do all of them at once, because then it's literally just 1 hour of icebreakers, which may be a bit too much. But you can definitely come back to this and use it every time. So we have, for example, an icebreaker on, where in the world you are, and you can visually add your picture and the country that you're based in. Or, what was your first job? Those always have amazing stories. And so you can take a look around. You can even add GIFs or GIFs, depending on how you call them, and do that. And Adriana, maybe you want to share the second template?
Yeah, the next one is around annual align timeline. This is another one of our super popular templates, because it helps you visualize throughout the year what are some of the projects that we have going on. One of the things that we often talk about here at Pops is making sure that we align all of our initiatives in a way that our employees are not getting bombarded with everything at the same time. You might want to do the same thing, right? You might want to visualize how your entire year is going to pan out, so it feels like a journey, and seeing it visually is just so powerful. So this is another one that's really popular and easy to use.
Yes, and every template also, usually the activities will show you how many people you can have this session with, how much time you need to actually use the template, and how difficult it is. And we have many very easy templates to use. And then this is probably one of the very first templates we have. I remember this from years ago already at Mural. It's the brainstorm and idea prioritization template, which is just really good when you're trying to come up with new ideas and innovate. And you're not just like throwing ideas out there, but you're going through a process of brainstorming together and clustering those ideas and figuring out what themes there are in common, and then coming to prioritization. Because too many times, I think, when people try to come up with new ideas, either they stick to the idea that they love the most just because it was their idea. And so there's this, I love the expression, kill your darlings. It sounds a bit violent, but it's just about letting go of those ideas that maybe are not the best ideas, right? So when you come as a group together and use a template like this one, you really can start focusing on the idea that will have the biggest impact.
Yep. Cool.
So there we go.
So hopefully this was very helpful for everybody. We love using our product. It's really, really helpful. It's really fun. We have found that not only does it help us bring better ideas to life and activate them, but also brings the teams together in a way that's a lot more inclusive and brings connection. So hopefully this was useful, and you can all bring it to life as well.
Yes, thank you.
All right, wait. You guys are not done with us yet. We actually wanted to give you a few pro tips that I think would make things even more successful and fun. Lila, I know you have a few cool ones in there that you want to share.
Yes, well, you did mention yodeling, but aside from yodeling, it's just generally you can play any kind of music at the beginning of a session. I think, especially when you're having that awkward silence and you have a big group of people joining, like we have the all hands every 2 weeks, and that's hundreds of colleagues coming online. We like to have some music playing in the background, and we try to put something a little bit jazzy or funky, something uplifting, but not too intense. So that's always great. And then we do try to encourage that chit chat that you would also have in an in-person meeting. If you came into a meeting room and you bumped into somebody, you would ask them, how they're doing, or, hey, you got a new haircut. So I definitely do that, even if we're hundreds of people and I'm waiting for others to join. But even in small meetings where it's actually much easier to do that, I definitely, do that informal chit chat. Do not skip the icebreaker, because that's where all the fun lies. And Adriana mentioned that, that's also her favorite part, or that's her favorite template. But when you have an icebreaker at the beginning, the fun thing is that then throughout the meeting, you'll sometimes refer back to something that somebody said during the icebreaker. So if somebody mentioned like they're very good at making a cocktail, later down, the journey of the meeting, somebody will say, hey, what about that cocktail? I think, now's a good time to have it. And take breaks, especially in these long sessions that may last more than an hour. I tend to recommend having a break every hour. 5 minutes is enough, and everybody can, just physically move out of their seat. Helps you kind of bring the oxygen in your blood again. Remember that we are in physical bodies despite being so virtual. So definitely provide breaks.
Yeah, those are awesome tips, Lila. And I think there's a few tips too that we wanted to share for after the meeting. So for the Activate area, one of them is just make sure that you are following up and share links of everything that you talked about. Lila talked a little bit about the amnesia. You want to make sure that doesn't happen. Share it with people. Make sure that you understand what your operational cadence is. So how often are you going to meet to check on the project? What are you going to do? Assign a project manager. You want to have one dedicated person that's going to help drive everything and make sure that everybody's following through. Having that one person, we have found that it's very, very helpful. And then pick a project management tool and choose your norms and your behaviors that you want to have to make sure that you're staying on track. So these are some of the things that we have found are really helpful to make sure that you just don't forget that you had this amazing workshop.
That's right. Thanks, Adriano.
Thank you all.